My husband introduced me as just an adjunct professor teaching basic composition at the department dinner. 3 hours later, he discovered I'm the keynote speaker at the international research conference he'd been rejected from twice. The moment hangs in my memory like a photograph. Marcus stood at the head of the table in the faculty dining room at Whitmore Hall, his third glass of bourbon catching the chandelier light as he gestured expansively toward me. The entire history department faculty sat around us. 12 distinguished professors who'd gathered to celebrate the announcement of this year's conference presentations. "My wife Emily here," Marcus announced, his voice carrying that particular tone I'd learned to recognize over our 8 years of marriage, the one that mixed affection with condescension like oil and water. "She teaches at Riverside Community College. Introductory composition courses, right honey? Nothing too demanding." I smoothed my napkin across my lap, a practice gesture I'd perfected over countless dinners just like this one. Around the table, I caught the subtle shift in postures. Professor Catherine Walsh, chair of the literature department, suddenly found her wine glass fascinating. Dr. James Patterson cleared his throat twice. Young Professor Sarah Kim, newly tenured, met my eyes with something like sympathy before quickly looking away. They knew. Of course, they knew. Everyone in this room except my husband knew exactly what I really did. But I'd asked them to keep my secret, and they had. For 3 years, they'd maintained the fiction while I built something Marcus would never have believed possible. "Actually," I began, keeping my voice gentle, "The beauty of it," Marcus continued, cutting me off without even noticing, "is that Emily understands her limitations. She knows the tenure-track world isn't for everyone. Some people are meant for teaching, others for research. Takes wisdom to know which camp you're in." Dean Richard Morrison shifted uncomfortably at the far end of the table. He'd been copied on the conference announcement that had arrived in my inbox this morning, the one I hadn't opened yet, the one that would change everything. I could feel my phone buzzing silently in my purse. Another email. Probably my department head at Stanford wondering if I'd confirmed my keynote schedule yet. Stanford, where I'd been a tenured full professor for the past 3 years, maintaining a coast-to-coast double life that would have been impossible without modern technology and a very understanding department that valued my need for privacy in my personal life. "Tell them about that time you tried to understand my research," Marcus prompted, turning to me with a smile that I'm sure he thought was indulgent. To anyone watching, we probably looked like a loving couple, him proud, me demure. They couldn't see the slight pressure of his hand on my shoulder, possessive and controlling in equal measure. This wasn't how Marcus had been when we met. 9 years ago, when we were both graduate students at UC Berkeley, he'd been different. Supportive, even. We'd stayed up late discussing Foucault and Butler, challenging each other's ideas, pushing each other to think deeper. I'd fallen in love with that Marcus, the one who saw me as an intellectual equal. The change had been gradual. His first tenure-track position at Riverside State. My decision to finish my dissertation quietly, without fanfare. Then the job offer from Stanford that I'd accepted under my maiden name, Chen, instead of his last name, Morrison. He'd been so consumed with establishing himself that he'd never asked about my part-time teaching. And I'd let him believe what he wanted to believe, watching as he transformed from partner to patron, from equal to superior. "Emily doesn't really follow the theoretical frameworks," Marcus was explaining to Dr. Patterson now. "Too abstract for practical teaching applications," she says. Which is fine. Community college students need different approaches. More hand-holding, simpler concepts. My phone buzzed again. I knew without looking it would be another congratulatory message. The International Conference on Modern Literary Theory was the most prestigious event in our field, held every 3 years. Marcus had submitted his paper on post-colonial narrative structures. I'd submitted my paper on intersectional feminist approaches to 19th century American literature, but he didn't know that. He didn't know a lot of things. "Marcus," Catherine Walsh interjected carefully, "perhaps we should discuss the conference announcements. I believe they went out today." "Oh, I didn't get in," Marcus said, with practiced nonchalance that didn't quite mask his disappointment. "Panel presentation was too competitive this year. But that's fine. I've been published in the Journal of Literary Studies twice now. Building a solid reputation takes time, not just one flashy conference appearance." I watched Sarah Kim's eyes widen slightly. She knew my publication record. 23 articles in top-tier journals. 2 books with major university presses. That Journal of Literary Studies he was so proud of. I'd served as a peer reviewer for them for the past 4 years. Your wife, Dr. Patterson said slowly, choosing his words with visible care, does she ever attend academic conferences? Emily? Marcus laughed. No. She's not really interested in that level of academia. Are you, sweetheart? You've always said you prefer the teaching side, the student interaction. Nothing wrong with that. We can't all be researchers. I took a careful sip of water, watching the ice cubes catch the light. In my purse, my phone continued its silent vibration. The conference organizers were probably wondering why I hadn't responded to confirm my keynote address, the one scheduled for the opening morning, the one that would set the tone for the entire 3-day event. Although Marcus continued, warming to his subject now, I'll tell you a funny story. Last month, Emily asked me to explain deconstruction theory. She'd heard some students talking about it and wanted to seem informed. I spent an hour breaking it down into simple terms, and she still looked confused. He shook his head fondly. That's when I realized just how specialized academic work really is. What seems basic to us is genuinely incomprehensible to others. Across the table, Catherine Walsh's knuckles had gone white around her wineglass stem. She'd been on the dissertation committee when I defended my thesis on Derridean approaches to American slave narratives. She'd called it the most sophisticated theoretical work she'd seen in a decade. The waiter appeared to refill glasses, and I excused myself to the restroom. In the marble-tiled sanctuary, I finally checked my phone. 17 emails. The conference announcement was there, official and unambiguous. Dr. Emily Chen, Stanford University, keynote speaker. Intersectional Frameworks in 19th-Century American Literature. A Deconstructionist Approach. Opening address. 9 a.m., main auditorium. Below it, personal congratulations from colleagues across the country. One from the conference organizer. Dr. Chen, your acceptance would complete our program. You're our most requested speaker. Please confirm. And then, further down, I saw it. The notification I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The department-wide email from Stanford's Dean of Humanities, sent to all affiliated scholars including cross-listed faculty from other institutions. Including, apparently, Riverside State's History Department. Congratulations to our keynote speakers at this year's international conference. We're particularly proud of Professor Emily Chen, whose groundbreaking work continues to set the standard in our field. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Soon, very soon, Marcus would check his email. Would see that announcement. Would see my name, my real name, attached to the position he'd dreamed of holding. But not yet. Not here. I needed to control this, to manage the revelation on my terms. I typed a quick response to the conference organizers confirming my participation, then slipped my phone back into my purse and returned to the table. Marcus had moved on to discussing his latest article submission, explaining to the younger faculty members about the publishing process. It takes persistence, he was saying. You can't let rejection discourage you. My wife wouldn't understand this, but in academia, we have to develop thick skin. I settled back into my chair, catching Catherine's eye. She gave me the slightest nod. Tomorrow. Everything would change tomorrow. For tonight, I could play my role one last time. You know what makes a successful academic? Marcus continued, his voice slightly slurred now. The bourbon was catching up with him. Focus. Single-minded dedication. That's why I've always been grateful. Emily didn't pursue a tenure-track position. 2 academics in one marriage. One of us would have had to sacrifice their career. And honestly, I'm the one with the real potential for significant contributions to the field. Dean Morrison stood abruptly. Marcus, perhaps we should discuss your course load for next semester. I have some concerns about. Not tonight, Richard. Marcus waved him off. Tonight is for celebrating. Did I tell you I'm presenting at the regional conference next month? Small venue, but prestigious nonetheless. My phone buzzed again. I didn't need to check it to know what it was. The announcement would be spreading now, through academic networks, across social media, through the interconnected web of scholars who knew my work even if they'd never connected the acclaimed Dr. Emily Chen with Marcus Morrison's quiet, unambitious wife. I think, I said softly, I might head home soon. I have early classes tomorrow. See? Marcus smiled at the table. Dedicated to her students. That's my Emily. Content with her role. No unnecessary ambitions, just focused on what she does best, teaching basic skills to students who need them. There's nobility in knowing your place in the academic hierarchy. Catherine Walsh actually winced. Sarah Kim was staring at her plate. Dr. Patterson was typing something urgently on his phone under the table. Marcus, the dean tried again. I really think we should. Tomorrow, Richard. Whatever it is can wait until tomorrow. But tomorrow wouldn't wait. Tomorrow was already arriving, one email notification at a time, spreading through academic circles like wildfire. Dr. Emily Chen. Keynote speaker. Dr. Emily Chen, full professor at Stanford. Dr. Emily Chen, whose citation count was 10 times higher than her husband's, whose books were taught in graduate seminars across the country, whose theoretical frameworks had reshaped entire subfields of literary study. I stood, gathering my purse. I'll take an Uber home. You stay, enjoy the evening. Marcus barely looked up, already deep in conversation with a junior faculty member about conference presentation strategies. That's my girl. Always thinking about my convenience. As I walked to the entrance of Whitmore Hall, Catherine caught up with me in the hallway. Emily, she said quietly, are you ready for this? I've been ready for 3 years, I replied. The question is whether he is. He's never going to forgive you. Good, I said, and surprised myself with how much I meant it. Because I'm done forgiving him for not seeing me. The Uber ride home took 20 minutes. In that time, my phone exploded with notifications. The announcement had gone viral in academic circles. Colleagues from graduate school were reaching out, congratulating me, many expressing shock that I'd kept such a low profile. Others, who knew about my marriage, were more circumspect in their messages. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the study that Marcus never entered, the one where I conducted my research, wrote my papers, participated in virtual department meetings with Stanford. The walls were lined with books, many of them my own publications under the name Emily Chen. My diploma from Stanford hung on the wall, Doctor of Philosophy in Literature, awarded with distinction. My faculty photo from the Stanford website showed me in professional attire, confident and accomplished, a far cry from the demure wife Marcus introduced at dinner parties. I pulled up my email and began composing my response to Stanford's department head, confirming my keynote presentation details. As I typed, I heard Marcus's car pull into the driveway. Earlier than expected, my heart rate picked up. The front door opened, closed. Footsteps in the hallway, heavier than usual. The study door swung open without a knock. Marcus stood in the doorway, his phone in his hand, his face pale. Emily, he said, and his voice shook. I need you to explain something to me. I saved my email draft and turned to face him. Of course. I just got an email. From the dean, congratulating the department on having connections to this year's international conference keynote speaker. He held up his phone, showing me the announcement. Dr. Emily Chen, Stanford University. Yes, I said simply. That's your maiden name. It is. And Stanford. You teach at Riverside Community College. I took a sip of wine, letting the silence stretch. Finally, I said, I teach 2 online composition courses at Riverside as a favor to their department chair. It's maybe 5 hours a week of work. The rest of my time, I'm a full professor in the literature department at Stanford University. I have been for 3 years. The color drained from his face completely. That's not possible. It's very possible. I'm tenured, Marcus. I publish regularly. I serve on dissertation committees. I'm currently mentoring 4 doctoral students. I gestured to the wall behind me. Those are my books. Those are my awards. That's my office at Stanford on the video call screen. He moved further into the room, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. His eyes landed on my diploma, my publications, the photographs from academic conferences that I'd attended alone. How long? The Stanford position? 3 years. But I finished my dissertation 7 years ago, right around the time you got tenure at Riverside State. I published my first book 6 years ago. It won the Excellence in Literary Scholarship Award from the Modern Language Association. That's one of the most prestigious awards in our field. I know. Why didn't you tell me? I stood, setting down my wine glass carefully. Do you remember the night I defended my dissertation? You had a departmental meeting that ran late. You said you'd try to make it but probably wouldn't. I defended to a packed room. Catherine Walsh was there. So was James Patterson. 23 faculty members from 3 different universities attended. You didn't. I was building my career. So was I, Marcus. The difference is, I never asked you to stop. I never told you that you weren't capable of research. I never introduced you as just anything. He sank into the chair across from my desk. Tonight. At dinner. All those things. I said. About me not understanding theory? About knowing my place? About being content with simple teaching? Yes. I heard all of it. So did everyone else at that table. All of whom know exactly what I do and have been keeping my secret because I asked them to. Why? His voice cracked. Why would you hide this? I thought about that question, the one I'd asked myself countless times. When we met, you were brilliant and supportive and you saw me as an equal. But after you got your position at Riverside, something changed. You started talking about your career and my teaching. You started making decisions about what I could and couldn't understand. You started introducing me as your wife who taught part-time, who had simple ambitions, who knew her limitations. I never meant. You did mean it, Marcus. Maybe not consciously, but you meant every word. And I realized that if I told you about Stanford, about my research, about my success, one of 2 things would happen. Either you'd try to diminish it, to make it smaller than your accomplishments, or you'd demand I quit, claim it was too demanding for a marriage, insist one of us needed to prioritize the relationship. And that person would be me. He was silent, staring at his hands. So I kept it separate, I continued. I built my career quietly. I published under my maiden name. I attended conferences while you thought I was visiting my parents. I worked from home while you assumed I was grading basic composition essays. And the sad part, you never asked. You never wondered why I spent so much time in this study. You never questioned how I could afford my own car, my own clothes, my own expenses. You never saw me, Marcus. You saw who you needed me to be. The conference, he said finally. The international conference. I submitted to that. I know. I saw your submission. I was one of the reviewers. His head snapped up. You reviewed my paper? I recused myself. Conflict of interest. But I saw it before I did. Your theoretical framework needed work. Your citations were outdated. Your methodology was sound but unoriginal. The panel chair made the right decision in rejecting it. And yours? Was accepted unanimously. I'm the keynote speaker because my work on intersectional feminist approaches is considered groundbreaking. 3 universities have already contacted me about adapting it into a book. Oxford University Press wants first right of refusal. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing the small room. Everyone knows. The whole department. They've all known this entire time that I've been. He couldn't finish the sentence. That you've been condescending to someone far more accomplished than you. Yes. They've known. And they've watched you do it, dinner after dinner, meeting after meeting, and they've said nothing because I asked them not to. Why now? Why reveal it now? I pulled up my email, showing him the dozens of congratulatory messages. Because the conference announcement went out today. Because your dean sent a department-wide email celebrating Stanford's connection to the keynote speaker. Because I checked my watch, 12 hours, the full conference program goes live online, complete with my photograph, my bio, and my list of publications. By tomorrow morning, every academic in our field will know that Dr. Emily Chen and Emily Morrison are the same person. My God. He sat down again heavily. My reputation. Everyone will know I've been. That I didn't know my own wife's career. Yes. They'll think I'm a fool. Probably. How can you be so calm about this? His voice rose. You've destroyed my credibility. You've made me look like an idiot. How am I supposed to face my colleagues? I stood, moving to the window overlooking our backyard. Marcus, I haven't destroyed anything. I simply stopped hiding my accomplishments to protect your ego. If your credibility was built on feeling superior to me, then yes, that's destroyed. But that's not my fault. We're married. We're supposed to support each other. I have supported you, I said, turning to face him. I've attended your department functions. I've proofread your articles. I've listened to you practice your presentations. I've celebrated every publication, every good teaching evaluation, Every small success. What I haven't done is made myself smaller, so you could feel bigger. What happens now? Now? Tomorrow I confirm my keynote presentation. Next week, I attend the conference, where I'll be surrounded by colleagues who know and respect my work. In 3 weeks, Stanford's dean has asked me to take on the department chair position. The current chair is retiring, and they've offered it to me. Department chair? That's one of the most prestigious positions in academic administration. Yes, I'll be overseeing a department of 43 faculty members, managing a multi-million-dollar budget, and shaping the direction of literary studies at one of the world's top universities. Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at it, then looked at me. It's the dean. He wants to meet tomorrow morning. He says it's urgent. I imagine he wants to discuss the complications arising from your misconceptions about your wife's career. Riverside State has been trying to establish a... Help them? Emily, I humiliated myself tonight in front of my entire department. You humiliated yourself every time you introduced me as just an adjunct. Every time you implied I couldn't understand complex theory. Every time you treated my intelligence as less than yours. Tonight was just the night everyone else found out. He stood, moving toward the door. I don't know what to say. There's probably nothing you can say, Marcus. Not tonight. Tomorrow, we can talk about next steps. About what this means for us. For us? For our marriage. Whether there still is an us after this. He left without another word. I heard him go into the guest bedroom, close the door. I returned to my desk and finished my email to Stanford, confirming my keynote details, my acceptance of the department chair position, and my availability for the media interviews that would inevitably follow. Then I opened a new email to my attorney, the one I'd consulted 6 months ago when I first decided the time had come to stop hiding. Jennifer, I typed, it's time to move forward with the separation papers we discussed. Please proceed with filing. The next morning, I woke early and drove to Stanford, a trip I made 3 times a week but had always claimed was to visit a friend or attend a book club. My real office was on the 3rd floor of Margaret Jacks Hall, a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the quad. My nameplate was on the door. Dr. Emily Chen, Professor of Literature. My graduate students were waiting, eager to discuss their dissertations. My department head wanted to go over the chair transition. A reporter from the Chronicle of Higher Education called, wanting to interview me about maintaining work-life balance as a leading scholar. I took the call, sitting at my desk, looking at the wall of my own publications. Work-life balance, I told her, isn't about making yourself smaller. It's about finding partners who want you to be as large as you're capable of being. That afternoon, my phone rang. Marcus. Emily. I met with the dean this morning, and he suggested I might want to take a sabbatical. Let things settle down. He's concerned about my ability to maintain authority in the classroom given the circumstances. That's probably wise. Wise? His voice cracked. Emily, my career is falling apart. Your career is fine, Marcus. You're still a tenured professor. You still have your publications, your teaching. What's falling apart is the illusion that you were superior to me. Those are different things. I got an email from the international conference organizers. They saw that we have the same last name. They asked if I'd like to moderate a panel discussion. As a courtesy, because my wife is the keynote speaker. I didn't respond immediately. Finally, I said, will you do it? I don't know. How can I stand in front of a room full of scholars who all know I didn't even know my own wife's credentials? The same way I stood in front of you at dinner after dinner, listening to you explain things I understood better than you did. You find your dignity where you left it and you move forward. Silence. Then, did you ever love me? Or was this all just some elaborate revenge? I loved the man you were in graduate school. I loved the partner who challenged me intellectually. I stopped loving the man who needed to believe his wife was less capable than him. This wasn't revenge, Marcus. This was self-preservation. The papers came today. Separation agreement. I know. I had them sent. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of you not seeing me. I'm tired of being invisible. 6 months later, I stood at the podium in the main auditorium of the Chicago Conference Center, looking out at an audience of 800 scholars. Marcus was in the crowd somewhere, though I couldn't see him. He'd accepted the panel moderation position. I respected that. It took courage to show up. My keynote address was titled The Invisible Intellectual: Gender, Power, and Academic Authority. I'd rewritten it 3 times, working through my own experiences, the broader systemic issues, the ways we make women small to make men comfortable. How many brilliant minds, I asked the audience, are we losing because we've decided that only certain people look like scholars? How many revolutionary ideas never surface because we've convinced their creators that they should be content with less? The applause when I finished was thunderous. Afterward, at the reception, dozens of colleagues wanted to discuss my work, my research, my ideas. Young women professors thanked me for speaking truth. Senior scholars admitted they'd had similar experiences. Marcus appeared at my elbow during a quiet moment. "That was brilliant," he said softly. "Thank you. I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for not seeing you. For not asking. For assuming. I know you are. Is there any chance?" He trailed off. "No," I said gently. "I don't think there is. We're in different places now. I need to be somewhere I'm fully visible. You need to figure out who you are when you're not standing on someone else's back." "That's fair." He paused. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have been proud all along. You should have been a partner all along." He nodded and walked away. I watched him go, feeling lighter than I had in years. A young professor approached me, nervous and eager. "Dr. Chen, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm at a small liberal arts college, and my husband is at an R1 institution. He keeps suggesting I give up my tenure-track position to support his career. Your keynote gave me the courage to say no." I smiled at her. "Don't ever make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort. The world needs your ideas at full volume." That evening, back in my hotel room, I received an email from the dean at Riverside State. They wanted to offer me a joint appointment, a partnership between their institution and Stanford. They wanted to use my story, with my permission, to discuss gender equity in academia. They wanted to name a fellowship after me for women pursuing research careers while facing family pressure to choose between scholarship and relationships. I thought about the woman I'd been 8 years ago, brilliant and ambitious but willing to hide it to preserve a marriage. I thought about all the dinners I'd sat through, all the condescension I'd absorbed, all the times I'd bitten my tongue while Marcus explained my own field to me. And then I thought about the woman I was now, department chair at Stanford, keynote speaker at the most prestigious conference in my field, author of groundbreaking research that was changing how scholars approached literature. Just an adjunct professor, Marcus had called me. I opened my laptop and began typing my response to Riverside State. "I would be honored," I wrote, "to partner with you on initiatives supporting women in academia. But I have one condition. The fellowship cannot be about women who choose between career and family. It should be for women who refuse to choose, who insist on having both, who understand that being brilliant and being loved should never be mutually exclusive." As I hit send, I looked at my reflection in the hotel window. Finally, fully, completely visible. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay small. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is insisting that the world see all of you, even when the people closest to you have grown comfortable with only seeing half. Marcus had called me just an adjunct. He'd been wrong about a lot of things, but that might have been his biggest mistake. Because there's no such thing as just anything. Every role, every person, every quiet voice has the potential to be extraordinary. You just have to be willing to turn up the volume.